Blasco, there are two things that jumped out at me that I wanted to ask you about that Carl just said. One is budgets and how this has been so financially challenging, what that might do for budgets for artists that you work with. And then secondary to that being, I'm not sure what artists you might have had that had releases like that happened right before the S hit the fan and how this has crippled their ability to support the album. Can you talk about either of those or both?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, the majority of my artists were in a position to make a record. And fortunately, they all had record labels that weren't financially crippled. So we were able to extract some of the advance to put them in the studio and start writing and crafting a record that will come out early 2021. So the way I'm kind of looking at it is we sort of shifted to studio time. We're able to pick up a little bit of change to kind of cover the difference. And this is time that was needed to be spent anyway. So as much as everyone would have liked to have been out touring, making money and, seeing their fans, at least we're utilizing this time constructively. And, we just kind of push forward, those budgets. So that was, and like I said, fortunately, I was in a position to make records for all those bands. Like they were long overdue. And, so now it's just kind of logical that we pivoted to that, scenario. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Andy, is that something that you've been playing with over at your place?
Yeah, I think the first immediate reaction was like, okay, now we don't have to rush anything. Let's get in the studio. Let's write the records. Let's get it to the point where we're going to have a better product whenever the switch gets turned back on, right? The challenge there is a writing session over Zoom is about half as productive as face-to-face. And a lot of our artists and some of our things to build in our runway to these records in the fall are in a tough spot. We can't really go film music videos. We can't do certain photo shoots, and we certainly can't get people in the room together as people read further and further, especially in LA where most of our work is done. We're in a pretty bad spot, as we were discussing earlier. Shouldn't even be going to buy groceries at this point. But I think when we kind of went first on lockdown, I was like, cool, let's pivot. Let's give everyone the tools to be able, all of our artists, the tools and managers to go and create. And I think where there is right now is there's a lot of forgiveness in the quality. It's more about just the content and getting it out there. People don't need super polished content. They need consistency with artists and brands that they love. And that was the first objective. And then second, like, let's plan out how we can get more at home. So do we have certain artists that can record a record start to finish in their basement or their spare room? Yes. Do we have an artist that has no ability to even do liners for radio? Yes. So we kind of look at the whole spectrum and see what we can actually accomplish by sitting at home, not being in groups. So and case by case, like everyone agrees, everyone's case by case what we can get out of them. And we look to get more out of what we have. So artists that we have on the roster that, maybe we're digging up B-sides, maybe we're finishing remixes or acoustic records. So we're looking at what more we can do with our hands tied. But studio time, we're fortunate. If people want to work, we'll get them there.
Eric, hopefully
I got a quick one for Andy, if you don't mind me jumping in. Yeah. That I think, what about the artists that had records come out? Didn't you just have a couple artists that records came out in the last month?
Yeah. So, specifically August Burns Red just had a record come out on Friday. And we had such incredible attention around this record, on all aspects, and the band does so much that it was actually a little surprising, but I think when right now we're all feeling this as a community. So I feel there's a lot of people in the rock or metal or hardcore community that were rallied around this a bit, so they chose to stay the course, but they also stood the course, but we had production in place, Now when we talk about production, I know we're living in a digital era, but there are a certain segment of artists that want vinyl and everything globally, right? We have to hit the switch on all this. So with records that we have had come out, because of the focus and because of the growth we've seen at YouTube, you know, everyone knows that streaming kind of dipped 10% right at the crack of this, but it's slowly recovering. If you have an audience like August Burns Red and you have a new record, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of support in the community. So we didn't lose a step there. And I think we're having a fantastic trajectory. You know, it actually did really well at iTunes. It's streaming really well. There was tons of press coverage globally. So the band was committed to do a lot globally, and we got everything. Like I said, I felt like there was a big rally around it, which was amazing because we didn't know going into it. We just knew that, you know, the S hit the fan, and we sat there and had to, you know, pile up everything, and it worked. So that's why I stick to everyone's point, or Eric's point a little bit, that I don't think it's a tremendous fail to put out an artist with an audience right now. I think obviously there's not much in terms of competition, if you will. I think there's going to be a lot of records that come out this summer, or if you're taking records to radio, that are going to be okay, because it's that, or you get in the fall and there's going to be 14 records every week stepping on top of each other, and you know, it's going to be a bottleneck. So you kind of have to pick your poison. But I think, you know, with the growth digitally, and you see the YouTube numbers skyrocketing, if you can feed that machine, YouTube community, then there's going to be a lot of attention towards it.
Yeah,
Eric,
I don't know if it's all right if I jump in real quick.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've seen, I saw a bunch of reports end of last week and early this week about how, you know, music industry overall streaming numbers are drastically down and all that sort of stuff. As far as my things have gone, people are craving content, and it's definitely jumped up. And you know, so I don't know if it's maybe it's niche based or something like that, because obviously, you know, the vast majority of people, instead of driving or doing whatever they would normally do to consume music, they're watching Netflix because they're stuck at home. But I've also seen, you know, correlating to what Andy said, that I've seen, you know, my digital numbers have been great. And, you know, and I've gone to my bands and been like, hey, this is a solid time to release some content. Maybe not an album necessarily. I definitely am not looking to move anything up, but whether it's a single or if it's just something, you know, like they've got something there, like, yeah, let's get it out there, because I have seen people have been excited to consume things. And, you know, and as far as online sales and things like that, like my online sales through our, you know, like web store and things like that, we released a record for a band called End in conjunction with Closed Casket. We did that in March, and it flew like beyond expectations, and that was great. And then conveniently, my web store warehouse closed, so we can't fulfill any orders. So that sucks. But you know, at the very least, I think at least now people still want to consume things, and digitally, I think that'll continue, because obviously digitally is cheap and/or free if you have a subscription, you know, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, just fully agreeing with what Andy's saying.